Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, powered by Match Shark. Listener ready? Stand by.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear, a podcast about the men and women who compete in IDPA matches around the world. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey. IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association, was formed out of the concealed carry movement in the United States back in the late 1990s, based on the founders' desire for a sport based on real-world defensive skills and not fancy equipment. IDPA matches are a series of stages that are based on realistic defensive scenarios and a test of a shooter's gun handling, accuracy, speed, and problem-solving skills. Men and women from around the world compete in IDPA every week, and here on Unload and Show Clear, we introduce you to some of those people. Everyday people. We talk one-on-one about their careers, about how they got into guns. We're interested in people and not in politics. The people who make IDPA great, they're not professional athletes. They're just everyday men and women, your neighbors, your coworkers, your public servants, your kids' teachers, the people who clean your teeth. And you're going to meet one of those great people today. And for 2020, Unload and Show Clear is powered by Match Shark. If you watch videos from the 2019 IDPA World Championship, for example, you'll see shooters who had to deal with the discomfort of shooting in sometimes heavy rain. Now, if you were at that match or with me at the 2019 Arkansas State match, you know how much fun shooting a match in the rain can be. Pasting and scoring targets is even more fun. You can't see the scoring zones, the pasters don't stick, the targets eventually disintegrate. Contrast the Arkansas State targets to the World Championship targets, and there was a huge difference, and that difference was Match Shark. Match Shark's patent-pending target shields keep targets dry even in heavy rain. They are reusable. The cost of the shields is quickly recovered by simply patching and reusing the shields over and over again. That reduces the number of times the targets have to be replaced too, and it makes your staff happier because setup and scoring and teardown are easier. It also makes the shooters happier because they can see the targets and they can easily paste them. Designed and manufactured right here in the United States, owned and operated by Will and Chris Schmid, whom you've heard here on this show, who are IDPA shooters themselves and experienced match directors. They understand the challenges that match staff face when dealing with bad weather. So let them help you run your matches faster and smarter and make it a better experience for your safety officers and your shooters. Visit matchshark.com today. Get everything you need to be prepared for your next rainy day match. Spring's coming up, and we all know what that means. Lots of rain in the forecast for your match days. Be prepared. Visit matchshark.com and find out more about their awesome products. And we are so excited that they are a part of this show this year. Our special guest today is MaryGrace McMahon from Middletown, California. MaryGrace, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Lloyd, thank you so much for asking me. I really appreciate that.
Well, tell us a little about yourself and what you do for a living there in Middletown.
I am retired.
What?
I retired around when I was about 42 from hairstyling to be a stay-at-home mom. So I actually have the privilege of being home with my kids. And
awesome.
That's what I do. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I like to shoot a little bit, too, on the side, too.
For those who think that stay-at-home mom is not really a job, my wife is one as well, and it's, God bless you for for doing it, because that's not easy.
The hardest, it is. When I first retired, I thought, it's going to be no, you really have to develop your own internal scheduling and self-discipline to get everything going. Otherwise, nothing ever gets done. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it's truly rewarding. So yes, I'm retired, and I'm the wife of a of a lieutenant in law enforcement. My daughters are teenagers, and they're very involved with their music and art. So we're very busy. We're very busy here.
Originally from California?
I am a native Californian, born and raised essentially in Chico, California, and Ukiah area. So up and down California. Yeah.
Cool. Now your IDPA profile says you started shooting later in life, so I'm not going to ask that question. But how did you develop an interest in guns? Where did you first, or were you first exposed to them?
My dad was in law enforcement, so it sounds like, and what I've learned in the shooting community, people either get into guns because they were raised with them, or a crisis in their life occurred that brought them face to face with the ignorance of how to handle guns. And mine was a crisis. My dad was in law enforcement, so I was always aware of guns, but he never showed us his gun. When he came home, he took off his belt, the gun was put away. The first time I ever shot a gun was in my 20s, and I think it was a Glock. I have no idea, but I remember, and my experience was, what I shot at, I hit everything. First time I ever shot it, only time I ever shot a gun. And I thought that was experience for everyone. Just you point the gun at it, and what you aim at, you hit it. And like, I walked away feeling pretty confident, not knowing that that's not everyone's experience.
Right.
So I am very accurate. So I kind of knew that just in the back of my mind, but had no real interest in shooting. What brought me to wanting to learn more about guns was actually a fire in our town. As you know, there's lots of fires that went through California. And in 2015, September 12th, the Valley Fire went through our town.
Ooh.
And it destroyed, I have the numbers here, it destroyed 1,322 homes, 73 businesses, 93 buildings, apartment buildings, and it killed 4 people. It destroyed 76,000 acres. And at the time, it was the 3rd largest destructive fire in California history. Now it went through my hometown, our town that we've been living in for the last 15, 20 years. And miraculously, our home wasn't destroyed. Our entire neighborhood across the street was up the hill, all the way up the hill, was devastated. And my husband works for the agency the next county over, and because our house survived, he was stationed in our home to help with evacuations and, working with or looking for looters during this time. It took 2 days to put the fire out. So me and my 2 daughters were evacuated for about 9 days in the next city over. And after a while, my husband just needed us home. He was exhausted. We know everybody. Our town is 1,200 people, essentially. Mm-hmm. The town was evacuated. No one is allowed to go home. So he was getting texts from all our friends. Hey, my address is this. Will you go and see if our house is okay? So he had he'd drive up to places and there's just destroyed, so he had to deliver these messages to our friends. Everything's gone. Or, yes, your house survived. So it was really hard on him. And, okay, you have your town leveled by fire. He got lost a lot. All the landmarks that you're used to having are just gone. He's like, drive anyway. It's an amazing experience.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, all your landmarks, all your trees, everything is, it's very bizarre. It's like literally being on the moon or ground zero of a bomb hitting. It was an extremely traumatic experience for all of us. Those who lost their homes, or like myself, I have survivor remorse. Why didn't my house? How did my house survive? And I'll tell you a story. Being a Christian, and I believe that God works in amazing ways. We had this neighbor. He's since moved on. That had this dog that would run up and down our fence, just torturing our dogs. And he was mean. Our kids couldn't go out on the street and, ride their bikes because he would chase them and snap at them. And me and my neighbor were always at odds about this dog. Can you please just keep your dog in your fence? We have acre properties. It's not like we don't have property, but he would just let this dog run wild and he'd run up and down our fence. Well, he had run a path, just a dirt path that abutted our fence that caused the fire to stop right there. So for 7 years, this dog was like the bane of my existence. I hated this dog, but God had used that dog to stop the fire because there was nothing to burn. So anyway, we came home and again, we started hearing about looters. My husband's gone. Again, he's in law enforcement. So we do have firearms and ammunition in the house, but I don't know how to use any of them. I don't know the difference between a 223 or a 9mm. I don't. Oh. And so here I am with me, myself and my 2 daughters. And at that point, I'm like, I need to learn at least how to load a gun so I can help my husband if anything ever happens. So that was a crisis that brought me face to face with my need to at least know how to do that.
And so what did you do next? How did you, once you'd identified that problem, what did...
Well, I thought it was going to be easy, and it was. I called a friend who's a trainer in the area, and being essentially brand new, I'm like, well, what do I need? Well, you need a holster. What kind of holster do I need? So the whole big new process of the equipment. Oh, just where it starts and how it just never ends. But so I took his intro class, and of course I shot a Glock because that's what everyone tells a woman to start. And I had one. I think we had a Glock, but and then he referred me to it's basically a gun resort in Nevada. I'm not going to say the name. Everybody pretty knows it, but It's basically a 4-day, basics class. And I did really well. I felt really comfortable. And my goal was just to learn and come home. But the funny thing happened was at the end of this class, there is a man-on-man steel competition. Anybody who's been there knows what I'm talking about. It's really simple. It's 3 targets, and it's an elimination contest. Contest. Well, I won. Freakishly, I won this competition. I've listened to other competitors and other sports people who, they've competed their whole life and they've been in sports. And I was never really competitive. I never really had that drive. Mm-hmm. I'm an artist. I love to draw. I'm an introvert by nature, so I'm a touchy-feely Californian. I was raised by, I'm conservative now, but my family of origin was very much not that. But as soon as I won that competition, something snapped in me. Like, I could be good at this. The first thing I'd ever been good in competing. And I'm like, so I came home, and then the next month there was just a small county fundraising steel challenge. And of course I won. I'm going to go in and my ego was huge at this point. So there's this whole immaturity of oh, I'm so badass. Oh, excuse me. Can I say that?
2 matches, 2 wins. I'm the bomb.
Oh, I'm exactly. Well, I go in and I get my butt handed to me. I'm like, what? Well, that's not going to happen again. So that's where I got introduced to IDPA. The next county over had a monthly IDPA match. So I went and saw my first match. I shot the next month. And in between, I didn't know anything about dry firing or visualization or anything. I would just show up at the match and hope for the best. And was very proud of myself because I was always, top accuracy. Well, you know what that means. It took me 4 minutes to finish each stage, but I didn't care. I was new. Nobody got shot. I survived the stage. Woo, it's a win, So I'm having a great time. But I'm at the same time, there were 3 people that were hugely influential in my interest in shooting. Fritz Dewey, Tasha Thompson, and George Lee. But they were so fast and so smooth and accurate. I was just in awe of how well they performed. And Tasha Thompson was an older, how do I say this? She's probably going to hear this. I love her. She was a mature shooter, a lady shooter, and she was fantastic. And she won every time. The high lady, I'm like, dang it. So I'm like, my goal in life is like, I got to be as good as her. And finally, she's finally told me, she's like, if you want to get better, one, you need to dry fire. Two, there's a place called Richmond here, in the Bay Area in California, and it's a very nice range, and you should go there. It's really fun. They shoot a lot there. And, if you wanted to shoot more, go there. So you have to remember, I'm an artist type. And it's like, I turned to my girlfriend one day and said, hey, I want to learn how to jog. And my friend says, hey, I know a bunch of people that like to jog and they do it really well. Why don't you go to this place and they'll teach you how to jog better? And I'm like, cool. So I go thinking I'm just going to learn how to jog better. Well, I show up and it's the Olympics. Richmond has world champions that shoot there, nationally ranked shooters. So I show up to my first match thinking this is going to be like this country thing. And I'm like, what is this? And I was floored by the talent there, and the people that I've met have since become my friends, and they've guided me. And, I was just so lost, but the shooting community is so encouraging. Even, the top ranking shooters know that you have to start somewhere, and they'll try to teach you and guide you along. So that was my experience into that. For me, it was a crisis that got me interested in guns, and winning just one small competition is what started me going. And ever since then, it's like, I can't get away from it.
So what does that look like since going over to Richmond and opening your eyes to what's out there? What's it been like from there?
I started reading a lot of books. There's, as so many books written on how to shoot or how to golf. So, Lanny Basham has been a huge inspiration for me in the sense of, I read his book. It was like I was reading my story. He says I was never good at anything. And he was the least likely to, be an Olympian. Well, it turns out he was, the Olympian in his classroom. And by no means am I comparing myself to him, but his way of thinking about it and visualizing and making the mental game of shooting the prominent element. So for me, a little bit about myself is, and what I've seen in the shooting community is I have not met one underachiever in the shooting community. I've met more doctors, scientists, people who strive for excellence and perfection, which in the shooting community, the better you get, the better you can get down to the minutia, and I thought, I'm a good artist. I was a hairstylist, so I owned a salon. I did jazzercise, so I became an instructor. Whatever I do, I want to do the best. And I just thought I would walk in, master this thing called shooting in a month or two, and then move on to the next thing. I had no idea that it would change my life, that it would change the way I think about everything. When you're shooting, what you're telling yourself before you get on the line, during and after, even in relationships. I mean, I've chosen to step away from negative people in my life because of how they speak to themselves, to me, to my, it's really important for me to have like-minded people in my life on the range and off the range. And it's even some family members, this caused a lot of interesting dynamics that I've chosen to step away from, or to at least recognize that, hey, you know what? Since I started shooting and really hearing what I'm saying, what's being said to me, some of it just wasn't cool. And I really needed to make the decision of I really don't want to hear that anymore.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time. So again, just starting shooting isn't for me just about shooting the gun. It goes much deeper. Like dry firing, I equate it a lot like prayer. again, as a believer, if you don't pray, your life is going to reflect that. Or if you don't spend time alone in the Word, or just in meditation, or just, silence for a while, your life will reflect it. And if you don't dry fire, well, guess what? You're matched. There's no way you can hide that you haven't done the work. So there's a lot of parallels in like the inner life and shooting life, the self-control, the discipline that it takes to, handle a firearm under pressure, or to think calmly. So there's so many facets, and there's so many, that it's so much deeper than just how to load a gun and how to hit the target, at least for me.
So once you had this awesome experience, you'd gone out and you'd shot a few matches, what was the first gun that you got for yourself for IDPA?
The first gun I got that wasn't, because I didn't know how to use a safety. Again, I'm still really brand new. I used a Glock, so I wanted something as similar as a Glock as possible. I got myself a Smith & Wesson M&P Procore.
Okay.
It was the worst possible gun I could have gotten for myself, because the grip was so bad, and I could not control the recoil because it sat so high. And no matter how hard I tried to get my hand up as high as I could, it's still, and I have small hands. So grip has always been an issue for me. So this gun just exacerbated the problem. And the next gun that went into my hand was a CZ75. And it's like the heavens parted, and I'm like, what is this? And I've since gone to the SP01, and that's what I'm shooting now. I have a Shadow 2, but that's just a little too heavy for me. In competition, the transition's too much. But the SP01 is perfect in my hand. And even with stock grips, it fits and shoots so well. I don't have much of a problem with recoil. It's only if I forget to use my left hand, that I have a problem with recoil. And that only happens when the beeper goes off, so it's all good. But
right.
So that's an opportunity for me to grow, is to remember to, I have a support
grip
hand that I could, right. Exactly. So I just went to carry optics. I was 48 when the fire came through. I'm 53 now. I've only been shooting for a little while, but so my eyesight, not what it used to be. So I went to got to carry optics, and it's like, I can wear my prescription glasses, and I can look at the target, and I can hit the target without. So now my practice is just acquiring it and trusting the dot faster.
Have you tried your hand at a sanctioned match yet?
Yes, I have.
Okay. From that giggle, I assume that there is a fun story coming.
So one of my friends at the local match, Tasha Thompson, she's the one that referred me to Richmond. But George Lee, who is a dear friend of mine, he's like, and if you want to get better, set a goal for yourself, enter yourself into a sanctioned match, and prepare for it. That'll encourage you to dry fire and do more of what you're supposed to do. So I entered the Western here in California, and I did okay. So I'm doing good. I'm just having fun. And again, my goal is just don't DQ, don't shoot the SO or myself, and it's a win, right? So I'm just like, woo! I get there, and one of the stages, and a lot of people remember this. I didn't think anybody would remember this. I remember it distinctly. Okay, it's just 2 targets. You go around a wall, and there's 2 targets, and there's a no-shoot that's been activated, swinging in front of it, right? Your job is to shoot 2 in the head and move on. Just don't hit the swinger. Well, I hadn't done a proper walkthrough. I had visualized it wrong. I don't know what happened, but I went around the wall, and I shot the swinging no-shoot in the head twice. Oh no, I had visualized, okay, there's a moving target. That's what I got to hit. I don't know where I got that information, but I just did. I went around the wall, shot the no-shoot, and I stopped because I was done. And I was like, looking at me, he's like, the classic, if you're finished, and I'm like, yeah, I'm totally done. So I, chugged clear and holstered up. So they started calculating how many points I was down. It was like, I don't even know. I'm like, oh no, I was supposed to shoot those 2 targets. And they're like, yes. But I'm like, you know what's really cool? I didn't know that I could shoot a moving target in the head. I didn't know that I could hit that. So I walked away with information of like, I didn't know I could shoot moving targets and hit it where I wanted to. That's good news.
That's so cool that you could take a positive away from that.
And you have to. I mean, it's like, at that point, it's like, okay, there goes the win, like ever had. But I didn't know I could do that. So every opportunity like that for me is like, okay, next time that's in my data bank. I know I can make those shots. So, but the very next sanctioned match was in Bakersfield. It was the 5 dogs. And so this is where my story of a sponsored shooter begins. So yes, I am a sponsored shooter. I'm sponsored by Laser Ammo. How that happened was right after the Western that I went to a convention and met one of their representatives who was a vendor at a Well-Armed Women conference. And his name was Colin Gallagher. And he was one of the contestants on Top Shot season 4. And he and I just hit it off. He has just a great sense of humor. And we just bantered and shot the simulator. It's a simulator system. It's a ammo-free simulator system. And we became friends on Facebook. And fast forward to the regional in Bakersfield, I DQ'd on, I know, there's 8 stages. On stage 6, I was running from a point of cover to the next, and I tripped on my cleat. And it was one of those falls that last 5 minutes. You know what I'm talking about. In your head, you have enough time to like have a conversation with yourself. Like, okay, brace yourself. This is really going to hurt when you hit the ground. Because I went in like I was going in for first base. I mean, I was running. I tripped and flew through the air, lost control of my gun. It stayed downrange, facing downrange, but it slid away. It's on film. It's freaking hilarious. And my husband watched, he was like, didn't know how to like react when I came home from the competition. He didn't know and I was like, watch this. This is hilarious. While I was falling, I was like, okay, you're tripping because you don't have enough leg strength. If you'd worked out just a little bit more like you had planned, you'd have enough strength to catch yourself. So as I'm falling, I'm like, okay, I need a new plan. I need to start working out more. I need to, so I had this whole scenario was going on in my head, right? Like what I got to do. So I fall.
I get one heck of a fall.
Oh my gosh, it was phenomenal. I'll show you the video someday. I'll post it. It's yeah. And I'm like, okay, so I've driven 5 hours to get here. I have a hotel for the night. I'm like, can I at least stay in tape? And they're like, absolutely, yes. So I'm like, okay, cool. Sportsmanship is really important to me. I've seen people DQ and just like storm out, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Part of the game is still staying, taping, and being a team member, a squad member. So I stayed and learned tons. After my DQ, I was able to, congratulate the winners at the awards ceremony. That's just part of the game. So for the next year or so, I started working out, started training more, because that was a real eye opener for me. I really I knew what I wanted to do. And my friend Colin, remember Colin from Laser Ammo, was watching me. He was watching me this whole time, like on Facebook, like wanted to see how I was going to respond to that. And he saw me working harder and harder instead of just giving up. And he and my husband on Facebook had become friends. And one day after I was shooting in Richmond, I come home and my husband goes, okay, so you're a sponsored shooter now. And I'm like, what? Wait, what happened? What are you talking about? He's like, so I guess he and Colin were bantering, and he's like, your wife is this and that, because that's just how he is. Like, your wife needs to hold her gun more and needs to blah, 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 whatever. And he's like, Colin, if you sponsored my wife and let her use your stuff, she could get better faster. And he's like, okay. And then I come home and I'm sponsored. I'm like, what does that mean? After that, I do use their simulator system, and it's basically going to the range and practicing without ammo. It's laser ammo, and I've gone to SHOT Show and the Great American Outdoor, and different conventions, and met so many people in the shooting industry because of the opportunity that laser ammo has given me. And so with that, back to 2019, I'm shooting in another shooting sport that shall be unnamed. And out of the blue, Razmik, who you've spoken to, you know, Razmik.
Right. Oh, yeah.
He calls me and he's like, okay, it's 2 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the Western. And he's calling. He's like, I know you're an SO for IDPA. I just need you. We need bodies. Will you come help us? We just need some help for the Western. And I went to the Western completely unfocused on anything other than I just want to be a good SO and I want to hit my target. So on the staff shoot, I took my time and I made I made a lot of the shots. I'm very accurate. So I did really well. And I did come in high lady.
Awesome.
So for me, that was quite an accomplishment.
I was just going to sort of tie everything in a bow here with something from your IDPA profile, and instead of asking you the standard "Why do you love IDPA?" question, I like the fact that I could draw from your profile. You find shooting challenging mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that, and what's the biggest effect that shooting has had on your life, especially with IDPA? Again,
it all goes back to Lanny Basham's book. You know, the mental management of the game, and it doesn't just start as soon as you walk on the range. Mm-hmm. It becomes part of how you think and how you communicate, not only to other people in your life but to yourself. You know, we are our own witness as well. We hear what we say to ourselves. You know, the tapes that we have in our head, you know, we can rewrite them. I had a pretty rough upbringing with my family of origin, you know, and I had to rewrite some of those tapes. And I had an opportunity to kind of wake up to that after realizing that, you know, with shooting, you really have to take every thought captive, like the Bible says. And how do you do that? You have to listen to what you're saying and go, wait, that's not what I want to say. What I want to say is I'm very accurate. I'm very calm. My first stage is always my best. I am an excellent sportsman. I encourage the women in my life. I am a good wife. I am a good mother. You know, all these things that after a while, it becomes who you are. And I say those things with full confidence that that's who I am today because of shooting. Because God has said, take every thought captive and think on things that are good and holy and right and true. And because of that, because I know the difference between right and true and evil and bad, you know, I can more quickly identify, okay, I don't want that in my life. And I don't want that around my children or my husband, or I don't want to gossip. I don't want to talk bad about someone. Or if someone's talking bad to themselves, I can come to them and say, you know what I really like about what you're doing right now in your shooting is you're really focused on this, whatever. You know, speaking life into situations is huge. And the physical aspect of shooting is obvious. You know, you have to get up and move around and,
right.
You know, stay fit. You know, again, if I had stronger leg strength as I was flying through the air, you know, I could have caught myself and maybe not DQ'd. So that's encouraged me as a 53-year-old woman to exercise. And I know women who are my age who don't stay as active. I'm also clean and sober. I've been clean and sober since I was 29. So I'm coming up on 24 years of sobriety. So if I take care of my body, you know, it's a big deal. I mean, it isn't now. I mean, it's a part of my life now, as far as like, I don't even think about it, but I see the effect of people my age continuing down the path that I was once on. And I'm so grateful that I get to wake up. I get to exercise. I get to have the opportunities I have today, simply because I'm sober and because I have a relationship with God. You know, for me, that's everything.
Very cool. Well, MaryGrace, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate you taking the time, and I've really enjoyed getting a chance to. This one of the great blessings of this podcast is you get to meet so many great people when you go to matches, but you never really get the chance to sit down and do what you and I have done here tonight and to actually talk one-on-one. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to do it, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope I get a chance to meet you on the range down the road.
That'd be great.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you to our guest for coming on the show. And thank you to our awesome sponsor, Match Shark, for making this entire season possible. If you would, please take a minute to check out our website, Unload Podcast. Lots of cool previous episodes are there, links to all sorts of great information. Just check out the guest list as well. Join the Facebook group too if you want to connect with other fans and get updates on the latest news. You can find that at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook. Check out our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of cool videos there at unloadpodcast.com/YouTube. And if you'd like to support the show personally, consider becoming a patron, just $1 a month at patreon.com/unload. And for your support, I'll send you out a sticker and you'll have my undying gratitude for your help. If you or someone you know would make an interesting guest for a future episode, you can contact me at unloadpodcast.com. Just go to the contact button in the menu at the top of the page and send me a message. Or you can send me an email at Lloyd, LLOYD, at unloadpodcast.com. Tune in again next Thursday for another episode of Unload and Show Clear, powered by Match Shark. We are a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Be sure to check out all of the other pro-freedom podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.